You're watching BCTV. We're all about Brantford. You're watching BCTV, Brantford Government Television, a service of Brantford Community Television. This program is brought to you in part through the support of the town of Brantford.
Vanguard.
Okay, we are going to open up the Board of Finance meeting for the town of Brantford for September 24th, 2018. First on the agenda is to approve the minutes of the August 27th, 2018 meeting.
I make a motion to approve the corrected minutes of the August 27th meeting.
Okay, Charlie's made a motion,
I'll second it, Joe.
been seconded. There's just a few minor change on item number 17. Any other discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Next on the agenda is citizens' comments, and we placed it on the agenda to enable the public to comment on tonight's agenda items. If there's anybody in the audience who'd like to participate. With no takers, we'll move on to item number 3, to hear an update on James Blackstone Memorial Library renovation project.
Of the 17 bid packages, we received responses in 15 areas from various bidders. 2 of those bid packages were about $440,000 over what was budgeted in our construction estimates. And after consulting with the town, various meetings between the building committee and our consultants, it was decided the best course of action was to go out to bid in 3 of the areas and then hold off until those rebids came in, and we would decide whether or not we would accept any of the bids that we had at that time. And Mike, maybe you could elaborate the process that you will be going through to try to get those areas that were over budget in their bids more in line with what we think our numbers should be.
Sure, Robin. We think the primary reason the specific trades are over budget was lack of participation by bidders, what we call coverage. We invited plenty of firms, over 400 firms. We called at least 100 of those directly, but in specific trades, site work and drywall and plaster, we had very limited participation. So it's inevitable when you don't get a lot of bids, you don't get very competitive pricing. So those margins in the 2 trades, site work, drywall and plaster, we need to get more bids in. And while there may be some minor changes in the documents from when we did our estimate in March to now, at this point, what's on the drawings needs to be bid by the marketplace, and we did not succeed in our first go-around. So we are rebidding, documents available Wednesday of this week, and bids coming back October 16th, Tuesday. We're actually going to rebid 3 trades. We put the architectural millwork out to bid as well. It was about a $50,000 overage in that package. We had 1 bid response and 1 bidder who was late. So this week, we are preparing the documents that we received from the architect on Friday afternoon. And I've reached out to 8 site contractors, 6 drywallers, and 7 millwork firms. Most all of them are receptive to receiving the package and submitting a bid. But the main difficulty we have with a project of this scale is the individual packages are not very large. We have a prevailing wage requirement, and we impose a performance and payment bond requirement. That's voluntary on our part, since we are offering the P&P bond to the town for the whole project. So we are open when we receive bids and interview low bidders, we're open to identifying the cost of the bond and whether that keeps a firm from participating. So that's the process. It's a repeat on a minor scale of our public bid process. And again, we're trying to beat the bushes for firms that are large enough to carry the proper insurance, have the ability to bond and do the work properly, and it is difficult at some of the package levels. So our site package, for instance, is We have a 2,000 square foot addition going on, it's a $200,000 and $250,000 package. A lot of house builders could reach that level, but they would not participate in a project of this sort. They don't want to deal with the paperwork, they don't want to pay the prevailing wages, they may not carry the proper insurance. So that's the struggle we're dealing with, but it's our job to overcome that and find enough firms that are willing to put in a competitive figure.
So just to reiterate, two of those bids that came in totaled that were $460,000 more than what was estimated. So that's almost all of the $500,000 that we are over. So we're optimistic. We're optimistic cautiously that when the bids come in
October 16th.
October 16th, they'll be more favorable than the ones that came in last time.
Okay, thank you for that overview. So the 500,000 now that you're over with regards to the bid process, that's your only issue? What about is there any other lack of funding goals, or?
No, I think we are, what do we have in our capital campaign? Over 700 and?
We have about $720,000. We just put out a townwide mailing, and we've been getting a great response from that. So I think we're on target to hit our $800,000 goal.
So you have pledges of 700,000?
Well, over
Over
seven.
Okay.
And of course, the $1 million from the state is, we've done all the paperwork, we've kept them apprised of what we're doing, and they have no problems with the process we've been taking.
Okay. I know we have some questions, so I'll open it up. Charlie, you have a few questions?
Listen, I know you mentioned there were 17 bid packages.
Yes.
Do you intend to rebid all 17 packages?
No, sir. A number of packages were below our budget, and one of our most important, which is masonry, was significantly below our estimate, in part due to the redesign of the outside that the State Historical Preservation architect requested. So we have some good bids from some very good firms. Most of the others were a little above or a little below, so they pretty much are a wash. So those bids are good until October 24th. And tomorrow I'll be requesting the firms that have not contacted to extend their bid another 30 days, just to give us time to square up.
Okay, how many then bid packages are you planning to rebid?
3,
3.
Yep.
And those are all single bidders before? Are those items?
yes. Well, drywall was 2 bidders, millwork was 1, and site work was none the first time, and then we did a quick rebid and we got 1.
Okay, there's one bid that looks kind of suspicious to me. That's the doors, frames, and hardware. I think you
Yes.
folks estimated 51, and the bid was 17.
That's the way we wrote the package versus how we estimated the package. By the time the design was finished, most of the doors and hardware are made of oak. So we had estimated them in that division, which normally they're hollow metal, like this building, the frames are hollow metal. So the low bidder, in the end, the way we wrote the bid package was doors and frames that are wood are in the architectural millwork package. The only frames left in this package were 2 or 3 door frames, and then all the hardware. So we had 2 bid results. If you saw there, 17,000 was the low bidder, and he carried the right scope of work, which is basically just the panic bars and the locks and the lock sets.
Okay.
So the other bidder looked at the job the way we estimated it, but not the way we sent it out to bid.
How much time did you give these new 3 bid packages?
21 days from tomorrow till October 16th. 21 calendar days.
Okay.
Is there a push to also include more local contractors?
We have solicited directly many local firms. We have a good number of them identified right now as low bidders. And there's a couple that didn't want to participate. One site contractor from town doesn't like to do prevailing wage work. So he just flat said he didn't want to participate. But we have Cherry Hill Glass on board, Summit Masonry, which is neighboring North Haven. So we have a number of firms.
Did anybody ever say to you or the bidder that it's over restrictive, the bid itself?
Well, a number of the bidders that declined to participate gave their various reasons, and the prevailing wage was
Oh,
probably
that was
the
the main reason?
most common reason for companies. When you have a large workforce in the field and you have to pay some of them $50 an hour and some of them $30 an hour, it wreaks havoc with a small company.
Okay.
And
I
and
get
what
it.
happens, the guys making the 50 work a little slower. So it does disrupt the company's operation in some cases.
So is the prevailing wages part of this issue in the overrun, or is it more material?
No, it blunted some of the enthusiasm for firms to participate. We're paying it anyway. Any municipal state
Right.
job, you're gonna pay the wage. Maybe it's a 10% difference between pure open shop, depends on the trade, but that's the rule of public bidding, so if a company is interested in pursuing that work, they know what to expect. But there are some of these firms, again, with the small packages, they just rather not participate in a job where they have to do the paperwork, pay the wage, issue the certified payroll, and so forth.
I think the way it's working, if I could say, is that, for example, the site work, what was that estimated at, Mike?
200,000. We got a $400,000 bid.
If you do prevailing wage on a site work and you're a big company, that's too little, a $200,000 job is too little for you to be interested in. But if you're a small company, you don't want to be bothered by the prevailing wage aspect of it, so you'll ignore a $200,000 opportunity, even though it may be in your wheelhouse to do. And that's one of the things that we found.
Could you explain any value engineering that you might have done?
Yes, we offered about a dozen ideas to the committee when we first brought the bid results in, and we presented an approach that would have let the project start, but it did involve some sacrifices, compromise to the design. Specifically, we offered an alternate for the stonework on the outside. It was specified as a sole source Tennessee marble to match the original building, and it's from the original quarry, which is a very nice theme for the project. However, we were a little concerned that that sole source might take advantage of us at bid time, so we offered 3 different alternatives. Indiana limestone was a significant savings, 6 figures. Cast stone, and then precast. So the committee still has those options on the table, but they were not favorably inclined on that one, and I don't blame them. The millwork, we looked at various areas, and in fact, we've incorporated a number of these cost savings into the current bid package. So Karen and I walked around the library, we looked at certain areas where some millwork was scheduled to be removed and reconstructed, and we've identified a number of areas where we're going to salvage that millwork in place and make those savings.
The value engineering decisions that the committee did make ended up in a result of about $106,000 in savings.
Okay, thanks, Rob. Okay, other questions or from anybody? Jamie, you have any questions or comments?
Yeah, I'll just follow up on Robin's opening remarks, saying that he had met with the town, himself, the town engineer, as well as the finance director, did have a couple meetings with representatives from the library, as well as the Downs, and the last meeting, the architect was there. You know, I explained to the trust, since the town is appropriating this project, we did the full appropriation, and we're going to end up being the contract holders, that we can't sign a contract if we're $1 more than the appropriation that's in place. So with that said, you know, they have started to look at the project, and you know, there's really 3 areas. I mean, as stated by Mike McDonald from Downs, they had poor coverage, so they have to do something to increase their coverage. One of the questions I also had, the second area, which I think was touched upon with, sounds like in some of the packages, you know, the documents and the plans. Perhaps there was language or scope in those documents and plans that were released that weren't part of initially estimated, or differed from what was estimated and perhaps put into some other packages, which I think we should take another look at and really what we're putting out there. In particular, I think there was drywall and plaster, which I believe you're going back now and looking at that, because there was a significant variance within that project. And then the committee, now, the building committee that's representatives from the library sit on, they looked at the VE items and the project scope. However, I think they, need to take a look at the project scope in itself, and if there are identify items, and working with the architect and Downs, and perhaps some Downs through their meetings, having the scope review with the bidders that they do want to award, perhaps there's opportunity to close that variance, because until there's under the $5.2 million that was appropriated, we cannot enter into a contract. So I believe.
We understand that, yes. When you've been working on a project for a long time and you have a vision of it in your mind, you would do almost anything to get it built the way that your vision tells you it should be built. But we recognize and we realize that we only have so much money, and we will work within the monies that are allocated to us by the RTM and the Board of Finance.
Another question.
Thanks, Robert. Charlie?
The state is going to kick in $1 million towards this, the film. Now, is that in jeopardy at all because of this delay? No. Okay.
We've been keeping, Karen's been keeping the state librarian informed every step of the way, and there's been nothing but positive feedback and encouragement from that department.
Okay, good. Other questions?
I'm good, Joe, thanks.
All right, folks, thank you for the
Thank you.
update and good luck. Keep us posted. Appreciate the input. Okay, next on the agenda is to consider and if appropriate approve a request from Solid Waste Management Commission for the following budget transfer for fiscal 19 from material handling, $24,500, into condo association rebates, $24,500. Welcome, Dan.
Thank you. Evening.
Evening.
Yeah, so this was two things that we had in our budget. This is a fiscal year 2019 transfer request. We estimated what the condo association rebate would be during that budget process, because we knew our cost for collection was going to increase, and that rebate is ordinance-driven number, and so we estimated what that would be. That estimate ended up being slightly low, so we need $24,500 to make that line item whole. In good news, we don't need to ask for new money, though, because we had a favorable contract extension to deliver our municipal solid waste to the Preston facility. So that saves us close to $8 a ton in disposal cost, multiplied by the 13,000 tons or so that we get rid of trash here in the town. There's about $100,000 that we budgeted for that we now have available for other uses.
Good, thank you. Dan. Questions on the transfer, Charlie?
Hey, Don, how many condo associations do we service?
There's about 3,600 units. I think that's broken into 50, 60 condo associations.
That many?
Yeah.
I'm just surprised at the number.
Yeah, there's almost a third of the town is condominiums, as far as units.
Okay.
3,600 condo units, roughly 9,000 household units.
Okay, other questions?
I'll move it, Joe.
Moved by
Second it.
Robert, second by Jeff. Discussion, all in favor?
Aye.
Thanks, Dan.
Thank you.
Next is to consider and if appropriate approve a request from the Finance Department for the following transfer for fiscal 18 from contingency $12,000 into legal services $12,000. Catherine is here. Welcome, Catherine. Do you want to go over this?
As you know, that Jim was here in the August meeting. We had assumed that we had received all the bills, but there is one that came in after he had presented his last transfer. So this just makes that account whole.
And just remind me what the balance and contingency is?
If this transfer is approved, it will be $447,421 for the 17-18 fiscal year.
Gotcha. Okay, questions from Catherine? Catherine on this transfer?
No?
Move it.
Moved by Robert,
Second.
seconded by Victor. Discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Thanks, Catherine. Next is to consider and if appropriate approve a request from the town clerk for the following budget transfers. One for fiscal 18 from advertising and printing and binding, $912. Excuse me, into memberships, conference and meetings for $912. And the second request is for fiscal 19 to transfer from professional development, $250, into education incentive, $250. Lisa?
So the fiscal 2018 transfer request of $912 is a line item transfer from advertising to memberships, conferences, meetings. This past year, I was involved in the New Haven County Town Clerks hosting the spring conference, and so there were several extra meetings involved in that, and over 2 overnight stays at the conference hotel. Also, in conjunction with staying at a hotel in Connecticut, which is kind of frowned upon, I understand, is also in conjunction with achieving professional development points toward my next certification. So I'm almost there. I only have 8 more points to go out of 120 points. So those are kind of shared, those hotel expenses are kind of shared between that and professional development.
Okay. Questions on these 2 transfers?
I'll move it, Joe.
Moved by Jeff,
Second.
seconded by Robert. Discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Thank you. The next is to consider and if appropriate, recommend approval to the Board of Selectmen regarding an employment agreement between the town of Branford and the finance director. Jim is at a conference tonight, but we are looking at his contract. Jamie did forward it to me, and I forwarded it on to you folks. There's just a few minor changes. One is in the term of the agreement, which basically extends the agreement for a period of time, up to 120 days, after the signed termination of the contract. And there's another updated with regards to the current salary that he's receiving. Jamie, do you have any comments on this?
Yes, sure. This is pretty much the contract is identical to what was approved a few years ago. However, just touching upon a couple of changes, really putting the term out to June 30th, 2022. There's some added language if the contract would be renewed for a period of 1 year unless either party elected not to at that time to extend the contract for that period. But however, that would be the 120 days of written notice, 120 days prior to terminating the agreement. However, I just want to point out, I think we all value Jim Finch, the town, the work he does, and his commitment to the town, so I'm pleased to see that he's providing us a commitment up to 2022 and perhaps beyond. So.
Thanks, Jamie.
And then the other 2 changes were just really bringing it up to the salary to what it was. This is what's in the budget this year.
Right.
Just reflecting that, and I think that's the only change. Only changes.
Okay.
It is.
Questions on this contract?
So there's only one extension.
Right. So, you know what, why don't I read this term of agreement just so it's clear? The agreement shall be in full force and effect upon signing and shall remain in effect until June 30th, 2022. Thereafter, this agreement shall be considered automatically renewed for a period of 1 year unless either party at least 120 days prior to the termination of this contract, serves written notice to the other party of a desire to terminate, modify, or amend this agreement. So that's, but yes, Robert, it's extended for 1 year. Then the other change, as Jamie mentioned, it provides the current salary, which Jim is getting, and it also adds to accommodate budget preparation within the time constraints of the town's fiscal year. The reviews shall be completed March 1st of each fiscal year. That way, it would be in sync with the budget. So the rest of it is what's currently in force.
Sure, I think it's pretty straightforward. I make a motion to move.
Motion to move by Jeff.
Second.
Seconded, and then Charlie has some discussion.
Under vacation, remove the word "to," T-O.
Okay.
And just, hey, Jamie, maybe you can help me understand.
Are you taking vacation time away from them?
No,
It's the wording.
it's an extra "to" in there, T-O. Under F, construction, I'm not clear what this, when it says, "The rule requiring construction against the party causing this agreement to be drafted." I don't know what that means. It's under F. F is in Frank.
Page 5.
Shall be interpreted without regard to any presumption or rule required.
We do have an attorney, RTM member, and an attorney on staff here. Mr. Black, would you like to comment? We-
Charlie, I'm guessing what that's trying to say is there's a rule of law whenever you're interpreting a contract that kind of presumes that whoever drafted it, whoever wrote it to favor themselves. So if there's any ambiguity, it's construed against the drafter. Now, what you were trying to read, I wasn't sure what they were trying to say, so I guess that's ambiguous. Even perhaps if I read it 3 or 4 times, I'd
All right, so I'm
understand.
in the clear? I wasn't clear about what I meant?
Yeah, which, I mean,
So what it's,
if you can't figure out what it says, somebody probably ought to rewrite it into plainer English, but that's what they're trying to get to, is talk about that rule of
Okay.
what it
of
says
interpretation.
is this agreement shall be interpreted without regard to any presumption or rule
Okay.
requiring construction against the party causing this agreement to be drafted.
Okay, so they're throwing out that prevailing rule, which means that both sides are treated equally. If there's a dispute, they're not going to, if we're the ones that drafted it and said, hey, Jim, sign this, and there's an ambiguity, our opinion of how it should be resolved is as important as Jim's.
Is this
whereas
the usual phrase that's used?
That's,
I've never seen it, that's all.
I haven't either, and I'm sure you're aware, now that I've reminded you of, you're probably used to that with business, that, when you have contracts in your own business and you have somebody sign something, if there's an ambiguity, it's gonna be, held against you and not your patient or
Yeah.
client.
Thank you.
But that's what they're referring to.
Thanks.
Thanks, Peter. Okay, any other discussion items on this motion that has been made and seconded?
And it was reviewed by the labor.
And it was, thank you, it was reviewed by council, by Bill Lyon, our labor council. Okay, all in favor?
Aye.
Thank you. And with, I have one other item I'd just like to talk about for a second. I did receive an email today on behalf of Lorraine Young, and she is regretting, but she's resigning from the Board of Finance. And I just wanted to thank her, and I know the board all wants to thank her very much for her time and effort and expertise and many years of service to the board. So I just wanted to update the group on that.
Yeah, certainly, Joe. We thank her, and she served many years with many of you on this board. And it was a few years ago, she was delighted that she was able to come back and serve another couple terms. So I think she's been a great asset over a number of years, not only to this board, but to the town and any decisions that were made.
So thank you, Lorraine,
Thanks, Maureen.
Thank you.
and good health and good luck. So with that, with no other business before the board, I'll entertain a motion to adjourn.
So moved.
Been moved,
Second.
seconded, all in favor?
Aye.
There you go.
This program was brought to you in part through the support of the Town of Brantford. Watch town meetings and other videos on demand at BrantfordTV.org.